Test.
test,
Test.
Hey there, Chalisard. How's it going? Can you hear me all right? Cool. I ask away any questions that you have. That's awesome. Yeah. Shoot whatever you got over. I will answer anything that you have. While you're doing that, I am going to try to up the size of the chat box on here a little bit. I will be right back. I am going to go turn some AC on real quick. All right. Yeah, Stack Overflow is an interesting place. It can be really useful for beginners, but a lot of times the answers on there are they're either way too complicated or they're not complicated enough. It's things like looking for JavaScript questions and getting back jQuery answers. That'll happen a lot. And while jQuery is a big part of the web and it is really interesting, it's something to potentially know. A lot of the times when you're looking for something that you just want to work in pure JavaScript, jQuery isn't what you want. I spent my entire college career using Stack Overflow to answer questions. It is what it is. I think typically the way that it works for developers is you kind of start out at the, I don't know anything, and so I'm just going to copy answers from Stack Overflow, try to tweak them until it works, and then go from there, which is a really good way to learn. It's frowned upon in CS education, which I think is kind of interesting. The idea that, all code isn't just really copy code. is kind of weird to me, because that's really all you ever do with code. So you would start out probably copying, trying to rework it to fit your system. Once you kind of get a little more of an understanding of the APIs and the way that JavaScript works, or whatever, I'm going to go with JavaScript since that's what you were talking about. But once you kind of figure a little bit more of that out, oftentimes you'll move towards better resources. MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, is one of the best resources. That's what I've got pulled up here for this thing that I'm working on. It's a great place to find all of the browser APIs, the way that they work with examples. So, for example, if you wanted to get something about like the web audio API, you can just search for web audio. It'll pull up here, and then suddenly, you can read all about it. They have great content. It really covers like a lot of the stuff. It's also open source, which is really cool. But I mean, I still use Stack Overflow from time to time. It's a quick way to, especially if you've forgotten how something works and you just need a quick example of how it works. Stack Overflow is a good place to go for that. If you're looking for sometimes niche like algorithmic help, you can find good answers on Stack Overflow. And sometimes, you just got to use what you got to use. And it's not a bad resource. I think what I found myself doing a lot more as I've gotten more and more into development is I will look at a Stack Overflow answer, see how they did it, get kind of an understanding of how they did it, and then do it myself instead of just directly copying and then tweaking from there. Does that answer your question a little bit? Awesome. So I'm not sure. I think there's not very many people here. However, I will explain a little bit of what's going on over here on the screen. If you didn't read the intro thing or go to the website, I am building a web extension for Glitch. I discovered that the Glitch API is pretty cool. You can just grab it at api.glitch.com. Hopefully they don't care that I did that or that I'm doing that. If they do, I'm sorry, Glitch. So I think what I'm going to do is just grab some random projects from Glitch and display them just as a quick little intro to web extensions. I've never worked with a web extension API, so it's a good opportunity to learn. And yeah, I'll just kind of go through my process of learning. I'll try to explain as much as I can what I'm doing as I'm going, and I'm also trying to write good documentation in the code itself, which you can find at the link in the description of the chat thing there, where it says what we are building. Cool. So first thing, I guess I'm going to be using the fetch API here to just grab some basic data from the Glitch API. Fetch is really great if you've worked with like jQuery or other front-end libraries. A lot of times they re-implement XHR, which is a nasty library. It's the old way of doing this kind of stuff. It's still needed every now and then, just because not all browsers support fetch perfectly. But XHR is it's XML based. It's kind of ridiculous in like its whole usage. It takes a lot of stuff to really get into it. Let me see if I can find an example even. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so I mean, like, there's these crazy like event listeners and all this stuff that you have to do. And now that JavaScript has promises, the fetch library is way better. So fetch works a lot more like the AJAX calls in jQuery or any other libraries that you might have used. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab api.glitch.com/ just copy that. And so this is just a get, so that we can just .then. There is one little caveat with fetch, and that is that it does not immediately return stuff in JSON. So we will then it into a res.json, which itself returns a promise, and we should be able to console log that. And on this page, we should see an array. There we go. So there are 98 projects from Glitch. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to use some fun little math randoms to grab random projects. Since there I don't think is any documentation that I could find for the Glitch API, I did discover that if you just type in a number, it pulls up a randomly numbered Glitch project. I don't know if this is, I don't know what any of this stuff is. Okay, so this is just the name of the project. So probably need to figure out a better way to do that. But for now, we will move on from there. I think this is kind of interesting. I don't know if anywhere on the Glitch front end there's a not safe for kids like way to mark that, but it is on the API, which is kind of funny. So let's see. I wonder how we can grab numbers. So I do know that there is a categories random, which just pulls up a random category. But oddly enough, it just pulls like a few of those. And then a few projects within those. Some of these are not loading those for some reason. But I essentially want to figure out if there's a way to do this, but for like a specific category, or some way to just grab some random projects. If I could figure out how Glitch, so let's just go to glitch.com. If I can figure out how they generate like some of these things, that might help, but I don't know. We'll find out. This is all my user data. Application. Okay, so let's see. We'll actually explore the network tab a little bit. This is a little bit of like reverse engineering an API, though since I don't know anything about their API, we'll see how much reverse engineering we can actually do. It's all my user information. And feel free to continue asking questions, either about what I'm working on or anything else that you got. I am here to answer. Alright, what's going on here? Ooh, they do have a view source on here. Cool. So that's one of the coolest parts of Glitch, is that you can just see how a lot of this stuff was built. So let's find out. It looks like, I mean, this is just the whole site. Some fun staging URL stuff. Interesting. Does not look like. Okay, so they're just using this render index star, which I assume, yeah, okay. This looks like this is some React going on here. Random categories. So there's how they're grabbing a lot of this information. Interesting. Yeah. Alright, I think I'm just going to probably pull some random category stuff and try to grab a couple projects from that. So as far as I can tell, this just returns the same things every time if you hit projects. I don't know if there's a way to page through with that. Darn. Okay, so we'll just grab some random category stuff. I think this is kind of funny. These links are hyperdev, which is what glitch was called before. It was called glitch. Okay, let's just grab this random data here. And I'm probably not going to make this a React app. If it were a little bigger, I might. But for now, I think we'll just make it a plain old JavaScript application. But we will do it in kind of a reactive, new functional JavaScript kind of way. So let's go ahead and make a container for this. And then from there, we basically just need to grab that container, const, we'll call it, what did I call this? My mind is gone right now. Document dot query select. Yeah, Chalisard. So it's a really good question, and it's kind of a hard one to answer. You can definitely use vanilla JavaScript, especially with a lot of the stuff that's come up with JavaScript recently. And it's worth remembering that a framework like Vue, React, or Angular, at the end of the day, compiles down to plain vanilla JavaScript, which is something that can be kind of hard to remember. But when you think about it that way, you really think about, you're not doing things in the React way, you're not doing things in the Vue way, you're doing things in the JavaScript way, which then just have this special flavor on top, right? So I'm going to build this whole application in just plain vanilla JavaScript. For larger things, frameworks are nice because they give you constraints. And there's a level of creativity and, I don't even know what word I'm trying to think of. Just the ability to kind of think about things and be constrained to a way of thinking that really helps in development. A lot of times people don't like constraints or will tell you that constraints in development are bad because you can't do things the way they want to do them or whatever. But when you have to think about things and you have to constrain your ideas to all fit the same way, that can really help. But React, Angular, Vue are all really just tools to get things done, and they're all tools that are built on tools that already exist. So use them for a paradigm, use them for kind of a way of thinking, and to make your life a little easier, but you don't have to use them. Hope that helps. And I will mention one thing, like I was saying, with the fact that JavaScript is just React. One of the best ways that I learned React, I do React for my day job every single day. And I found that one thing that really helped me when I was trying to learn React was really sitting down and just working from a blank slate and trying to build pieces of React in JavaScript. There's a lot of different tutorials out there. You can learn about the virtual DOM. You can find tutorials on how to build virtual DOM libraries. And you can also find ways to do your own JSX library, anything like that. It really helped to kind of solidify why things happen the way they happen in JavaScript for me. So that can help. Yeah, let me know if you have more questions. Alright, so what we're going to do now is for each of the projects that we get back, data should be an array, so we're going to do a for each. For each project, we are going to create a box. So what I'm doing here is just creating a new div with the class of project, and we're probably just going to do a quick little console log. Oh, except that these are not projects, these are categories. I am brilliant. Okay, so we got some information there. Let's go ahead and just also create a header. To put into these boxes, and then we're going to set header.text. Oh, I can never remember if it's inner text or text content. Pretty sure it's text content. Yeah. Category.name. dog is in the background. Header dot. Now we do box dot append child header, and then for each of these projects dot box dot append child box. So we should see. There we go. We have all of the categories from Glitch now pulled in here as headers. One of the things I gotta think about is how we're going to get the projects from each of these. So let's just see what kind of data we have to play with here. Okay, so a few of these have projects underneath them, but not all of them. So what I want to do is filter these based on if they have a project or not. Hi, Yusuf. I don't know how to say your name. I'm sorry. Glad to see you. If you want to tell me how to say your name in the chat, I will try to pronounce it correctly. Yusufeffel? Joseph. 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 Okay, cool. Sorry. How's it going? Okay, so there we go. So this, now we just have the ones that have projects underneath them. I have no idea how this API really even works. I feel like I'm going to end up getting the same things every time, but we'll try it out. Yeah, so I can explain a little bit there, Joseph. It is essentially, I'm just working on a new tab page, for, you know, like a web extension like Chrome or Firefox or whatever. I'm going to try to use the web extension API. I've never messed with it before, so just learning a little bit about that. And at the same time, basically taking some of the libraries that Glitch has. If you've never used Glitch, Glitch is just a live coding website. Grabbing some of the API stuff and then returning some of the projects from it. One of the problems I was having, to catch you up a little bit, is that I cannot figure out a good way to get a project. I'm a front-end developer, so I work, well, I'm a full-stack developer, but primarily my job is as front-end. Like, where's my home office located? Cool. That is an interesting question, Chalisard. So Um, I have been building websites going on probably 8 years now. Yeah, about 8 years now. And I started just, messing around at home, building dumb little websites and stuff for myself. Ended up building a website for one of my jobs using WordPress, which is kind of how I learned a little bit more about programming. I then went to college for computer science. Decided I didn't want to graduate in computer science, and so I switched to economics. Graduated in December of 2016, and now have been working for over a year and a half. But I worked all through college as a developer on different kinds of projects, a lot of consulting work, which was cool because I got a lot of time to learn stuff. So full experience, if you want to talk just job like related in the workforce, like 4 or 5 years. I've been programming though for 8 or 9. Okay. I should also note, I taught myself JavaScript over the course of about 6 months, and I didn't take any courses in college for it or anything like that. I went to Purdue University, and so spent a lot of my time learning C and some other things like that. But I really like JavaScript, and so I decided to teach myself as much as I could about it. I had a job that was requiring me to do more and more JavaScript. But yeah, that's so you don't need like a formal education or anything, for sure. You just sit down and learn it. There's a lot of good tutorials out there and a lot of good information out there. Okay, so categories. What's going wrong here? So that exists now. Categories. Java and CR. It's a little different though between Java and JavaScript. I guess JavaScript and C, are pretty similar, but Java and JavaScript are a little different. One of the main differences between JavaScript and C is syntax, a little bit of syntax, but a lot of kind of APIs and things around that. One of the main things you have to think about when you're doing JavaScript is the fact that you are writing JavaScript as much as you are writing interfaces for browser APIs, which is a little different than a lot of other lower level computers languages, and some stuff like that. You're interfacing with things like needing polyfills for IE8 because it's all in the browser and things like that. And so I don't know, it's pretty interesting. And depending on how you write it, JavaScript is also a weird language because it is imperative. It can be a little declarative. It's functional light. It has object-oriented syntax. It's kind of all over the place in what it does and how it works. But again, that's kind of like the React or Angular question that we had earlier. Picking a way to write JavaScript is as important as settling on a way that you're going to use a framework, or not use a framework, either one. But that can be helpful. Okay, let's find out why. Oh, yeah, no, this is this not working because I didn't do this correctly. There we go. So we're back to here. Another alternative for JavaScript. There are a couple languages that compile into JavaScript that are kind of interesting. The problem is there's not a lot of JavaScript alternatives. It's I'll come to that in just a second. So JavaScript is very unique in that you are writing code that runs in a browser, and so the browsers kind of get to decide what that code's going to do. There is like WebAssembly, but WebAssembly is not wonderful to, like, you're not going to write WebAssembly. You can write C or Rust or any of those lower level languages and compile them into WebAssembly, which is pretty cool. But alternatives, really, there's things like Reason ML, which is a higher level language that compiles into JavaScript and OCaml, which is kind of cool. It's a little more strict and functional if you're interested in functional languages. There are other languages like this that compile into JavaScript, and they're good. And if you want to use them, that's great. But you're still technically writing JavaScript in the end. And as far as debugging, I use console.log on a daily basis at work. I have tried using the JavaScript debugger in DevTools. There's some interesting things you can do, but for the most part, console log is a really good way to debug. You can get information about the state of your application. Learning where to debug is very important. That is that's a little more complicated. Understanding how the stack works, some of how like the event loop works. There are some interesting challenges to debugging. But once you've kind of figured out the nature of JavaScript and the nature of how things in JavaScript work, debugging becomes a lot easier. You can quickly figure out how stack traces happen. One of the coolest things that you can do in JavaScript, if you don't know about this, there's a couple other parts of console other than just the .log. So you could console.trace, and console.trace is really neat because if you do like a throw new error, this is an error. Console.trace, oh, that is not how that works apparently. Yeah, so console.trace does, you can put anything inside of it, but it will trace the stack back for you. So if I put it into here, you can see it gives me this really cool line 21 from line 13, line 12. So you can really quickly figure out how that kind of works. As far as I know, a lot of people do live coding, Joseph. I don't know very many, but I'm trying to do it more. So if you're enjoying this, definitely subscribe, and I'll be doing these every Tuesday at 6:15, same time, same place, usually without fail. It just depends on other things going on, but for the most part, this should be what I'm doing. But I think if you look within the like IRL game on Twitch, you can find this kind of stuff a lot more. Jeez. That's early. Okay. Oh, thanks, man. Or woman. I don't know. Sorry, I shouldn't use, random pronouns. Thanks. I don't consider myself a senior developer. Woman? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I do my best to understand things. one of the things I know you didn't ask about this, but I'll tell you anyway. One of the things that I found really helpful over the course of my career and learning is kind of learning how to learn, and so figuring out a lot of like the way that you figure things out. And it's different for everybody, but if you've ever heard of like the Feynman technique, this is a thing that people use for this kind of stuff. If you get into this like scene, there's a lot of writing and a lot of articles and stuff about this. But the Feynman technique is essentially, sit down, write down what you are trying to learn. And so you start with the sentence, blank is, and then start writing until you get to a portion that you don't understand. And so, one of the cool things with like JavaScript is if you go to MDN, you can like hit up the JavaScript page. And so here you go. So JavaScript is a programming language mostly used to dynamically script web pages on the client side. And so what you would do here is, look at this page and go, all right, well, so this is the thing I'm trying to learn. I know what a programming language is, so I'm good there. I could describe to myself what a programming language is. So it's kind of recursive. So you start with this same idea, right? You go, if let's say I didn't know what a programming language was, so I get JavaScript is a programming language, and then I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. Let me go look that up. And so I go look that up, and I write this out. Programming language is whatever, whatever, whatever. And you just kind of recursively go down until you hit a point that you can describe the word, then work your way back up, and eventually you have a very in-depth, comprehensive understanding of the thing. An example of this would be like, dynamically. Why is JavaScript dynamic instead of whatever the other thing is? In this case, probably static. How does it work? What does it do? Why is it only on the client side? Like, just figuring out a little bit of information about all of these things can really help. And yeah, it's a solid way to kind of work your way down in a programming context, down a stack of knowledge, and then back up the stack of knowledge. And so when you're trying to learn something, right, like especially yeah, there you go, Joseph. So like, let's say you wanted to learn about the event loop. I'm not sure what the MDN, the concurrency model and event loop. So in this, JavaScript has a concurrency model based on an event loop. Here's a good example of something that's completely different in JavaScript than like most other languages as well. So if you don't understand, what is concurrency? Like, what is a concurrency model? We could go out and look at, other languages, things that talk about concurrency, where concurrency matters, right? And so in this example, concurrency is the idea that JavaScript is single-threaded. That's another thing. Like, we could start writing that down. So, concurrency is how you run code at the same time in a language. So we pop back up, and then we go based on an event loop. Okay, well, what is an event loop? And then we can get into this. And there's lots of information like this. At some point, I use the event loop example because I really like the event loop. And at some point, I'm going to be releasing some articles about the like 5 or 6 things that I think you need to learn to really be good at JavaScript, or to really start learning JavaScript. And that kind of once you get those things, you will be a lot better at figuring out what's going wrong in JavaScript, which is what I think a lot of programming is just looking at code, writing code, putting it down, and then figuring out why it's not working, or figuring out what you can do to make it better. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions, please continue posting. This is fun. I'm going to keep trying to add this stuff. So we have projects. So for category dot projects dot for each. Oh no. Well, if we lose you, Joseph, thank you so much for coming. This was great. I hope to see you back. Bring questions, bring friends. Yeah. Get some sleep. Sleep is important. Wonderful. And I'll do the classic, you know, follow me on Twitter, subscribe on Twitch. I try to post a lot about JavaScript and a lot about developer lifestyle and everything in general. So if you like what you see, I will try to keep producing that content. Alright, so we've got the project. And now we need to see what's under this. Oh hey, someone subscribed. My alert boxes are kind of obnoxious, but they're there. Thanks for the follows, both of you. Awesome. Yeah. And you know, keep me up to date. I answer any Twitter DMs that I get about, you know, programming or anything. So for sure, let me know if you have any more questions, if you have anything else. Even tonight, I think I'm going to be on for probably another 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm probably going to go, but I'll be here every Tuesday. I'm also probably going to try to upload all of these videos to YouTube after the fact. So I will maybe post something about that. We'll see if I get that actually done. Alright, so we have the project. I was looking at this, that's right. So we should have 9 projects here. I don't think they changed that much, which is part of the issue here. But description. Alright, so we're going to create, we're going to create a project header document dot create. Box.append child. Alright, cool. So we've got some projects here. I think these are just the ones that show up. Maybe not. Do these randomly change every time? Oh, they do randomly change every time. Oh, cool. Okay, so this worked. So yeah, we've got random projects from random categories on Glitch. I just realized we're essentially replicating this little section right here, but as kind of a new tab page type of deal. We'll try to get some of that finished up. So one of the things I want to do is add these to their own little boxes. Make those divs. And we will, so project box.append, and then we want to do box.append child project. Okay, and so we should have all of this, and now I think if we go into here, we can category display flex. Oh, there we go. Cool. So we've got you know, these displaying in a fun little way. although I don't know that this is how I want to do this. I think I just want to show 3 random projects fully here. So I'm actually going to rename categories. Back to projects. And we'll get a little functional here, and we will. I'm going to go ahead and just comment this. We're going to basically take this random categories thing. We're going to filter it the same way we did. And then we are going to map these. So we get the category. And we are going to just return. Actually, we can't map them, but we can reduce them. So this will take the start array. This is not valid JavaScript yet. Let me know if you have any more questions or anything. Chat. I am casually glancing every now and then. So we are going to start array dot concat category dot projects, and this then just needs the original array, and this now should just be random projects. So if I console.log that, gotta have equal signs. Cool, so now we have 9 random projects from various categories with a lot of magic functional stuff happening here. I will try to comment this. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking the categories. We are get only categories that have projects. And then we are... Yeah, I understand that, Chalisard. But also, I mean, don't be afraid to ask anyone in the community. The JavaScript community is really good. A lot of times people will be able to point you in the right direction to answer the questions for yourself. So we would reduce this. Reduce basically just takes a right-hand thing, and every time you go through it, applies it. It's a really functional concept, but it's most easily demonstrated through something like this. So let's say we have an array of values, and we want to sum this. You can't. You could just map this. It's a little odd in this case, but map and filter are both parts of reduce. They could be rewritten as reduces. So if I do this and then I do a reduce, the first argument to reduce is always the accumulator, is what it's called. So it's the thing that is being returned at the end after every element of the array has been mapped through in the reduce. So we'll call this accumulator, and then the second thing is the key, or the value that you are getting from the array, similar to the first argument of a map or a for each or something. And so in this case it is just an object with value. And so what we do is, let's say we wanted to sum this, you can use the accumulator plus equals object value dot value. And so because of some arrow function magic, this returns, these are returned here. This is equivalent to doing a function So if you see this anywhere, that's all that is. It's just shorthand for function syntax. And then the only other thing we need for a reduce is the initial value. So we want to start this out at 0 because we just want to add up all of the values in here. And so we are returning the accumulator every time. And we'll also go ahead and console.log accumulator and object value each time. So if we run that, as you can see, we get the first thing. The accumulator is 0 because it starts at 0, which is what we told it here. And then it loops through. It gets the first one. The value is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0, so it returns that again. The second time, the value is 1, and so then 0 plus 1 is 1. And then the last time, the value is 3, and so it returns 3, having added everything in that together. So what we're doing here is we are just reducing a starter array. This is also equivalent to like a flat map in other functional languages. But we are taking something that has an array inside of it, this category.projects, and if we just mapped through this, we would end up with this kind of doubly nested array that would be an array of 3 arrays. So if we just did a map here, you'd end up with 3 arrays. So instead, we are concatenating this with a reduce. So we start with an array, and we concat that initial array and the accumulator array. So actually, we should probably rename this to be like accumulator array. And so we're just flat mapping. So we're putting those all into an array that's flat of objects that are projects, which you can see. That's what we did here. We have all those projects, and now what's cool is because of JavaScript, we can just do a dot map on these, or a for each. Yeah, we'll do a for each. Because we don't really care about what's returned here. We don't need random projects returned. We just want to loop through each project. I got my doc type in there. This is just JavaScript. Yeah, it's similar, Chalisard. So for each just gets and loops through every element. It's the same as like the jQuery for each or jQuery each. So to kind of explain that, the difference between so if you look here, if we run like const test equals 1 2 3, and then do a dot map. So a dot map takes values and returns something else. And so in this case, if we returned, value plus 1, I screwed up that. Shoot, I already declared it. That's all right. I will just do this. So what's returned from this is a new array in here, and so that's essentially what's going on here. So we've mapped through this array and updated its values, and it returns a new array. However, the same thing with a for each won't return anything. It'll be undefined because for each doesn't return, and so instead we would have to do like console.log here, and then we can log each one of them. So it just does the thing in the array every time. And so we're just using a for each because we don't care about the return value. And that's kind of all we need. And so instead, we are going to grab some of this code from down here. We will grab that. And essentially, we should have project description, I'll leave that as an experiment for you, Quake. And now we want to projects container dot pinned child box. And there we go. Now we have 9 random projects listed in here. However, oops, I did not mean to do that. Okay, please close. There we go. So basically from here, we need to just grab 3 random projects. And so one way to do that might be kind of fun. I don't think JavaScript has a good JavaScript array shuffle. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Here's an example of, as you were asking about earlier, Chelzard, you know, shuffling an array. Here's a basic shuffle algorithm. And we can probably write this pretty easily. Actually, you know what? It's a little easier. We won't shuffle. Instead, we'll do another filter on each project. And this will be kind of ridiculous, but we are going to just return math dot random greater than 0.5. So we should get about half of them. So we did. There, you know, 3 here now, and so this will, you know, generate some number. Because it's random, it's not perfect. If we wanted 3, I guess we could do like 0.33, and that should be closer to 3 every time. And then from there, we will just we'll do another filter, which will then just grab project. So we actually, in this case, we don't care about project. We want the index, and then if I is greater than less than 2, because arrays in JavaScript are 0 indexed. And so, I might have gotten too few that time. So this won't be perfect. Oh, because it's less than, yeah. So we wanted 3. So now we have 3 random projects being sent in. Let's go ahead and make these like an H2. Actually, we'll just go ahead and do this in styles. Projects. So those are flexed. I think these have, yep, a class of project on them. So in here, we're going to do project. We'll give it a border right, 3 pixels, blue, solid, and a border bottom. I should bump these up to like 5 pixels, and that'll be good. Padding. And font size on this will do 1.25. So there you go, some basic styling on that. We're going to give these a margin right of, we'll do 2%, and then we can do a fun little CSS thing. Project last child margin right 0, and we should have, there we go, 3 projects. And I'm actually going to give these a box shadow as well. That is a really good question. There's not a ton of good answers for that. It kind of is just a it depends kind of answer. So Webpack can be used as a task runner, especially in conjunction with something like npm and the npm scripts, or like a yarn script. So you could do like a yarn run or an npm run. So task runners are really good when you're building a lot of static assets. Webpack is really good when you want to run a dev server, especially for something like React. Though that's that's about as in-depth into that question as I can get. It really just depends. You could accomplish about the same thing with Webpack as you could with a task runner like Gulp or Grunt or something. In almost every situation, it's just a question of ease versus, like, is it even a good idea? There's a lot of questions that go with that. Sorry that is not super helpful, but maybe I'll try to do some research and see if I can come back with a better answer next time. Alright, so there we go. We have 3 random projects. Let's give them some links. So we'll actually make all of these A elements, and then we'll do box.href equals project dot, oh shoot, I don't actually know what the project has. Alright, so I think we just take the domain and we would just do we'll do a little bit of template string here. So we'll grab that. We'll make it that to https://project.domain.glitch.com. Now each of these, oh, that's not correct. What's wrong here? Oh, glitch.me, that's why. Alright, once we get this working, I will probably actually be calling it for today. I've been going for about an hour and a half now. If you have any last minute questions, toss them in there. I will try to answer 1 or 2 more while I'm finishing up this little link thing. And I will be back at the same time next week, Tuesdays at 6:15. If you subscribe on Twitch, you should get notifications when I start streaming, and I will also be posting on Twitter. My Twitch and my Twitter are the same. Just call me Was. I should put those on my Twitch box thing. That would be smart. So view link document.create element a const edit link document.create element a as well. now we just need to do edit link.text content. Do that remix and new link.text content. Cool. And so now everything's broken. I just have a capital L right here. Now we should have, yeah, there we go. So view and remix. I do want to add maybe a space there. I don't know. I got to figure out how to space those out a little bit. Probably just do a dot project a margin right 5 pixels. Yeah, 4 pixels. Yeah, that'll look good. There we go. So now we have view and remix. So okay, that's not what I wanted at all. I'm not sure there is a remix link anymore. Thought you could do that. That's alright, we'll just make this go to the edit page. Or view source, that's what we'll call it. That's what Glitch calls it. Neat. Alright, so we ended up with 2 that time. So next time I will probably finish up some of this, maybe try to get into the web extension side of things. I just accidentally opened up Epic Games, so I guess maybe I'm playing some Fortnite. Yeah. Awesome, great. It was very nice to meet you, Chalisard. Thanks so much for all the great questions. Again, if you have any questions, during the week when I'm not streaming, feel free to follow me on Twitter. It's just twitter.com/callmewaz. And I will be back here this time next week, ready to answer questions, ready to do a little bit more streaming. All right. Thank you all.